What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. There is a brand new Quickplay Hacked event with a crazy new rule set. It's live now, today, July 15th, and tomorrow, the 16th. Taking over Quickplay, replacing it with pickable passives. This allows you to pick an additional passive to benefit the role you're playing in. The devs say pickable passives looks at whether providing an additional upgrade changes how you approach forming compositions or responding to the enemy team during a match. We're also curious to see how much it puts a dent in overall game clarity. We're excited to see what you think. So you get to choose one of 3 selectable passives for your role to get an extra benefit for your hero. You get to choose in the spawn room at the start of the game or while you're respawning, but the standard role passives are also in effect. First up, let's look at the 3 selectable role passives for tank. We've got Unyielding, where debuff duration is reduced by 40%. So as an example, one of the major criticisms of 5v5 tank design is a character like Wrecking Ball never has the ability to really outplay some of the hard CCs. If they just pick the right things, you're going to catch all the CC and your hero is way worse. Well, now you would get minus 40% on hack, sleep, etc. Or perhaps you're not getting countered and you might pick the next one, Armored, where you convert 100 health into armor. I think this could go crazy on a character like Zarya, who otherwise can be burst down by characters like Bastion or Reaper, who have an overwhelming amount of damage and can tank bust on her. But all of a sudden, the new minus 10 damage per instance of damage armor would be a huge upgrade to that kind of tank. And maybe is good on the brawler tanks that already have armor as well, like Diva, Ram, Ryan are really benefiting from those armor buffs in the last patch. I have a feeling that this one might overall be the best, because ultimately you can usually outplay a lot of debuffs, and higher stats means you can just run things down and maybe even take some debuffs while you do it. The new armor in Overwatch 2 is kind of immune to a lot of damage types that are weak into it. The last passive is Last Stand, where 50% cooldown reduction when you're below 50% HP. So characters that take a lot of damage and maybe are built on healing, I'm going to say Junker Queen will be insane for this one, where you want to go aggressive, use your cooldowns. They are useful to heal you, and getting your cooldowns back means you get more lifesteal. Characters that can play on the edge of lower HP amounts while still being effective will be better for Last Stand. Whereas they might benefit from the armored extra armor health in general. That might still be objectively be better, but you can see some scenarios where Junker Queen just getting an entire rotation of cooldowns a little bit faster will devastate the enemy. But this kind of thing tends to usually be a bit overkill and unrequired, I think. In a recent interview, Alec Dawson talked about skill trees, or this kind of pickable passive type idea, I think, as being something I think they're actually seriously trying. My problem with it as a solution is that there usually is an obvious, clear answer in a simplistic system like this. And while I can be optimistic for a few edge cases of some of the other ideas, and sure, you can pick them in order to express yourself, in a competitive environment, the best one usually stands out head and shoulders above the rest. Next up to the damage passives, we've got Slayer, where you get to see critical health enemies through walls. This is basically Sombra's old passive and will be useful on flanker characters that want to go finish a target. But I think we can already tell kind of the worst passive out of all the ones we've already stated. The next one is Trigger Happy, where you increase ammo capacity by 20%. Reload times usually aren't such a big deal to Overwatch DPS characters, I feel. Maybe good for characters that want to shoot a long time, or heroes that have to reload often, like Pharah, Cassidy, and having an extra shot might be the difference in securing another limb. The last one is Frenzy, where eliminations grant a brief 30% speed boost. We've already seen this passive in the game back in the Giga era of Genji. 2 years ago, all of the DPS characters had faster reload and move speed after a limb. I personally liked that version of the game, and once they got rid of it, the support roles start to really overshadow damage. While this one isn't really going to help ranged pressure DPS very much, you probably go with one of the other ones, probably the ammo. It's insanely good on flanker DPS, particularly Reaper, who wants to close the distance anyway and does significantly more damage if he can, or like Genji, who's all about dash resetting on eliminations anyway. That's part of his gameplay loop. Now let's get on to the support passives. You got Resourceful, where you reduce cooldowns by 20%. Support cooldowns are actually insane, so I think this one's pretty OP. Whether you're talking Onanade or Suzu or Life Grip, Think about pound for pound. These are kind of the best cooldowns that exist. So that's pretty nuts. The next one is Swift Save, where you can increase healing by 50% for targets below 35% HP. A little bit of a complicated description, but it's basically the triage healing that Mercy had for some time in Overwatch 2, which gives a healing boost effect to burst heal targets that are low. This is giga broken on a character like Bap, who already can burst up his tank when the tank is low, or on characters that are really hard to take down with a pocket. Like you put this on your Mercy, who's healing a Pharah, constantly at chip health, it can be very difficult to work them down. So as strong as the cooldown passive is, this one may be even better. The last passive is Close Call, where you gain a brief 20% speed boost while below 50% HP. I see this one being best on the support characters that like to fight offensively the most, like Lucio and Kiriko, which is going to be a tool for them to outduel enemy DPSs, or simply just get away from dive tanks. Overall, I think that the support passives here are the strongest, next up being Tank, which have some pretty transformative passives. Overall, I think this is pretty good for the game because what Overwatch 2 aims to do is give more individual agency to the player, and while this is going to be unbalanced and there's going to be easy ways to solve it, what I think is more important for Overwatch 2 to do is to make it easier to have your own route to playing the game, as opposed to feeling beholden to certain counter picks. While in Overwatch 2, you can make the argument that because the team comps are less complex with one less player, a system like this adds a bit more complexity, but for the individual to manipulate. So you don't have to need necessarily a off-tank teammate to be giving you their resource to do the thing you want to do. You can pick a passive that does it for you. And based on individual player preference and agency, you can maybe smooth out some matchups that otherwise would be more punishing against you. And since you can change it at any time, when the enemy goes to counterpick you, you might have the option to, instead of counterpick back, to then switch your passive to be better in that matchup. We'll see if that plays out in practice. There's always two sides of the coin with this kind of thing. On one hand, from a casual point of view, you have a lot more like RPG decisions to make, but a lot of them might be competitively wrong, and it may, in fact, embolden top meta picks to even be better, because the power of what you can stack on a good pick gets even higher, which was kind of an issue with the 6v6 design to begin with, where because it was so complex, you could make team comps that couldn't be countered. Like nothing in the game could overwhelm some of the best synergies. Well, in the same way, as we add more complexity to this format, the RPG team comp builder aspects of it come back that were so oppressive in the first game, but also added some of that RPG depth I think a lot of players crave in Overwatch. No solutions, only trade-offs, guys. An interesting decision for them to try. I'll be playing it and looking closely what the community thinks on this. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like. And don't forget to click subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.